Hello everyone and welcome to the Rapid and Blitz Paris tournament. It's a very nice game between Nepomniachtchi and Wesley So, the game you've all been waiting for, because Wesley seems to be unstoppable this tournament and Jan is, well, as strong as he is. He's the challenger to world champion Magnus Carlsen. The match will take place in November, if you guys were wondering, and it's just a really impressive game. So without further ado, let's check it out as Nepo opens with b3. He goes for the Nimzovich-Larsen opening. We have d5 by Wesley, bishop to b2, and now knight to f6. We have e3 and bishop to f5. Wesley, a big fan of developing the light square bishop early. In many openings, be mindful of that. We have knight to f3 and now e6. He wants to play c6, close off the structure, put all of his pawns on light squares, have a dark square bishop that he can use to go in between the pawns, and then the light square bishop will not be a problem. So you don't have to worry about developing it later. Here we have c4 attacking the center and c6. Now Wesley defends. We have knight to c3 and knight b to d7. Now we have d4 and now another use case of the bishop on f5, knight to e4. And this is an excellent square for the knight. So now if this knight captures, you can capture back with the bishop. You don't have to ruin your pawn structure. And here known moves are knight captures on e4 and knight to d2. But here Nepo plays a3 and it is already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Wesley continues. We have bishop to d6. He simply continues development. We have bishop to d3. Nepo does the same. And now a series of trades here. Knight captures, bishop captures, and queen captures. So taking off two pairs of pieces off the board, and queen to e7, developing the queen. Now saying I might castle kingside, I might castle queenside, but it's probably going to be kingside because there's a storm coming on the queen side. So here we have castles by Nepo, and now a5, preventing those pawns from being pushed forward right away. We have e4, now saying, okay, your king is still in the center of the board. It's a very principled idea. I want to open up the center. And here you kind of can grab the a3 pawn, but not really. If you go for that pawn, just c5 traps the bishop. There's no saving it now. So instead, Wesley just castles here, and here we have bishop back to b2 by Nepo. Now the a3 pawn is nicely defended, and maybe later on in the future, maybe you can get some queen to c3 action going on. Depends on how the situation in the center resolves. We have d captures on e4, queen captures, and now knight to f6. This is how you activate the knight with tempo. Now the queen has to move. Queen to h4, and now Wesley strikes on the queen side with b5. So it's still a very leveled game. Both players with their dark square bishops, both dark square bishops are very strong. So for the moment, definitely an equalish game. So bishop to c1. Now Nepo wants to get this bishop over to g5, and Wesley just captures here. B captures on c4, B captures and c5. So with this move, yes, Wesley does give Nepo a passed c pawn if, for example, Nepo trades, but then he's going to blockade with the bishop here, and it's not going to be easy removing that bishop and start pushing the passed pawn. But Nepo goes a4 instead, and now rook f to c8. Now Wesley says, all right, I might just capture here, maybe double up on the c file, go after your c4 pawn. Let's see how you defend it. Nepo goes bishop to e3 and c captures on d4. We have bishop captures and now rook a to b8. So this rook can now come to b4, it can come to b3, all depends on what white plays. And also just the c4 pawn is under attack. So here bishop back to c3. Now the queen defends the pawn, and now bishop to b4. Now Wesley is saying, okay, you can capture here, and then I get my passed pawn. So here bishop back to e5, attacking the rook once again, and now bishop back to d6. Wesley wants to trade off the dark square bishops, and rook f to d1 now with a double attack here on the bishop. So here Wesley finally trades it. Bishop captures, knight captures, and the queen to c7 now with an attack on this knight here. And here there are a couple of moves you could play. One such move is queen to d4, just getting the queen back into the game, a nice centralizing move. But Nepo plays queen to g5, and it's a weird move to say the least. It's again an active move for the queen. Maybe he's hoping for some rook lifts in the future, putting indirect pressure here on the a5 pawn. But Wesley just plays queen to c5. And what do you do now? Well, if the knight now moves to a weird place, first off, you just lose the queen. So queen to f4, now this knight can move because queen captures on f7 is happening, and also the rook on b8 is being indirectly attacked, so if this rook ever moves, you might run into some discoveries. So rook to b7, getting the rook out of the way while defending the f7 pawn. So here, h3, taking a moment to create a breathing room for the king, and Wesley does the same. We have h6, and now, only now, Nepo goes for the rook lift, rook to d3. Now you can play rook to f3, rook to g3, put some pressure on black's king side. So rook c to b8, now with ideas of trading off a pair of rooks, but also just rook to b2 will be very interesting as the queen also attacks the f2 pawn. So king to h2 and now rook to b2. So the f2 pawn is attacked twice, now comes rook to f3, defending it, and now queen back to c7. Now again, with an indirect attack on white's queen. So here we have rook to e1, adding another defender to the knight, and now comes rook to a2, going after the a4 pawn. But also just making room for the other rook to come to b2. But this gives Nepo a very important tempo to get his pieces back into the game. So queen g3 now, again with tempo. Now rook captures on f6 is a threat because the pawn here will not be able to capture. So Wesley needs to waste a move to sidestep with the king, king h7. This is the only good move for black. Wesley plays it, and now queen to h4. Again, getting the queen off of this diagonal, but still, it's very ugly having your king here with the queen on c7. So here, rook b to b2, now with a double attack on the f2 pawn. For the moment, it's defended, but things, change very, very quickly. And here you should definitely bring the queen back, queen to d4. This queen needs to be centralized, but he doesn't care. He just plays rook e to e3, adds another rook to the third rank, and now he's basically offering a pawn to Wesley. If Wesley wants to weaken his king a little bit, for example, with the g5, then you can remove the defender of the f2 pawn. For example, queen d4, we can just capture here, and if captures, captures, and it's a very nice position for black. But it's not a directly winning one, so Wesley, of course, doesn't want to go into this and use unnecessary time. So Wesley starts with rook to e2. He just wants to pile up on this knight here. And now, of course, if you capture, then it's game over. Captures, captures. There's no way to defend this knight. It's attacked twice already. So instead, after rook to e2, we have queen to d4 now, but now comes rook captures on f2. We have rook captures, and now Nepo says, okay, now we've pretty much are done with everything we wanted to do, and now I'm down a pawn, but I have a passed c pawn, and I'm gonna start pushing it because these squares are nicely protected. So he pushes c5, but now knight to d5, attacking the rook here. We have rook to g3, and look at the position now. When the rook moved to g3, this rook is under attack. The g7 pawn will very soon be under attack. If this knight moves, could be very deadly, and Nepo enjoys his position. However, the position is completely lost for him. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find basically the only real winning move for Wesley while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on, again, noticing that your rook is hanging and we need to move it with tempo. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook to f4. And now all of Nepo's ideas will no longer be, of any value. Here the queen is under attack, queen back to b2, and now comes rook to f5. You could also play f6, but Wesley says no point in ruining our pawn structure. Let's just attack the knight this way. There's no way to defend the knight, so you can only move the knight. So knight to f3, and now comes knight to f6. And now this spin here will be everlasting. Knight to h5 is coming, and you will not be able to save the rook here. So queen to b6, basically the only move to prolong the game. And now Wesley doesn't even want to torture Nepo, or maybe he just didn't want to lose time. But here, if you move the queen and he goes after it again, e5, and that's it. There's no defense. You can just attack the rook on the next move, and it's game over. But Wesley said, nope, I'm very happy going into an endgame. I'm now up 2 pawns, and I am very easily winning this. There's no point in complicating matters. So here, if you trade, then, like I said, it's completely winning for black. You're up 2 pawns. So instead, after rook captures on c5, we have queen to b1. Now delivering this check here, king to g8, and now knight to d4, trying something, but there is nothing to be done here. Wesley just attacked the rook here, knight to h5, and there is no move here you can play. Knight to e2, and here Wesley just captured, knight captures on g3, and it was in this position on move 45 that Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned the game, and a brilliant, brilliant victory for Wesley So, who is simply on a rampage in this tournament. So here, yes, you're down some material, but the win is so simple that I know players who would win this, for example, on leeches with 1 second on the clock. This is such a simple position to win because you just have to trade. For example, after white trades, you're gonna attack the pinned piece, and there's no move white can make. White can only defend the knight here, and then you just trade everything off. Captures, 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 and captures, and now you start bringing the king into the game, and of course you're up 2 pawns. This is completely winning. So I'm saying, like, with 1 second on the clock, some people can win this. But yeah, after knight captures on g3, of course Jan also knows this, and here he resigned the game. So really impressive stuff, and before I forget, these are the final standings of the tournament. So Wesley So wins the tournament full 3 points ahead of Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is just incredible. He was simply unstoppable this tournament, and well, this is the result. 3 points ahead of the World Chess Championship challenger. That is no small feat. So yeah, Nepo with 21.5. Then we have Firuja and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave with 18 out of 36, sharing 3rd place basically. Then Levon and Richard Rapport with 17.5, Peter Sviller with 17, Fabiano Caruana with 16.5, Temur Rajabov with 14, and our wild cards, Etienne Bacro and Vladimir Kramnik, who only each played half of the tournament, 10 points and 5.5 points. So yeah, that's the game and the tournament. If you guys have any of your favorite games that we've missed, do use hashtag suggestion. I'm gonna go through them as we all enjoy great games. But yeah. That's it for now. I would like to thank James O'Toole, Philosophical Questions YouTube, Eric Labelle, Alexander Williamson, and Kyle Boddy for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Morphy saga, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.